It's 3 p.m. You still have something important to finish. The clock? It keeps moving forward, but your thinking doesn't. Your brain feels strangely heavy. The ideas that easily came forward this morning, gone. Most people, they think this happens because you got distracted or a lack of discipline. But the real reason is much simpler. You already spent your mental bandwidth hours ago. And once it's gone, focus doesn't come back. So in this video, I will show you the bandwidth budgeting system that explains where your focus actually goes and how to fix it. So what do most of us do when we keep losing focus? We assume something is wrong with our discipline. Maybe we need better habits. Maybe we just need to push harder. Maybe we need fewer distractions. So we try the usual fixes. We silence notifications. We drink another coffee or energy. We promise ourselves that tomorrow we'll focus better. But the strange thing is, even on the days where we are disciplined, and even on the days where we avoid distractions, the same thing still happens. By the afternoon, the thinking slows down, decisions feel heavier, and deep work starts feeling impossible. And that's the strange part most productivity advice never explains. Because even when you remove the distractions, even when you try harder, the same thing still happens. Your ability to think simply runs out. To understand why this happens, you have to look at your brain the same way an engineer would look at a system. Because your brain, it runs on something most people will never manage intentionally. A fixed daily bandwidth. Every day you wake up with a fixed amount of cognitive capacity. Think of it like a monthly paycheck. You get a small amount you can spend however you want, but once it's gone, even if the workday isn't over yet. And here's the most important part. Just as how all items have a different price, not all tasks cost the same amount of cognitive bandwidth. In modern work, most of our mental bandwidth, it gets spent in 4 different ways. First, it's the deep workload. This is the thinking that actually moves things forward. Designing systems, solving complex problems, writing reports, analyzing systems, creating. Deep work is cognitively expensive, but it's also where most of the true value comes from. When people imagine a productive day, this is usually what they have in mind. Then we have decision load. There are small constant decisions you make through the day. What should I work on next? Which email needs a response? Is this good enough or should I change it? Individually, they all feel small, but together they quietly drain your budget. Third is coordination load. Meetings, alignments, status updates, clarifying what someone meant in a message. None of this work is particularly deep, but it constantly forces your brain to switch context, which consumes bandwidth, even if the task itself feels simple. And finally we have reactive load. Emails, messages, notifications, the endless stream of small things demanding your attention. Nothing big, but always present. Now imagine how a normal workday actually unfolds. You start your day planning to do some deep work, maybe to write a report, design something, solve a difficult problem. But before you even start, you check your messages. A few emails need responses, someone asks you a quick question. Another message requires you to look up a document. None of these tasks they feel difficult, but each one spends a little bit of your bandwidth. Then you start deciding what to prioritize. Should I answer this now or later? Should I finish that task first? Should I join that meeting? Each decision is and feels tiny. But your brain, it still has to evaluate all your options each time. Soon the day fills with coordination, meetings to align with colleagues, decisions about timelines, and clarifying requirements, updating people on progress. None of these things feel like they should drain your ability to think, but they add up. So by the time you finally sit down to work on the deep work you planned, something strange happens. The thinking feels slower. The problem feels heavier than it should. And focusing suddenly feels difficult. Not because you lost discipline, but because most of your bandwidth has already been spent. Which means most professionals actually do something very strange. They plan their day around deep work, but most of their bandwidth is spent on coordination, decisions, and reactive tasks instead. So if mental bandwidth works like a budget, the solution is simple, at least in principle. You have to start managing it like a budget. The first step is surprisingly simple. Just look at yesterday and categorize your work into the 4 different loads. Deep work, decisions, coordination, reactive tasks. Most people are shocked when they do this, because what they thought was a day of productive work often turns out to be mostly coordination and reactive tasks. Once you know where you lose most of your cognitive budget, the second step is to put a limit on the leak, which most likely is gonna be reactive work. And if you don't put a limit on it, it will quietly expand to fill your entire day. Emails, messages, notifications, these things are designed to demand your attention immediately. So instead of reacting constantly, give them a fixed budget. For example, only 20 to 25% of your day. That might mean only checking your email 3 times a day, instead of allowing the notifications to push through whenever they show up. Sometimes, when I have to finish something truly important, I even limit it to only 1 time a day. The third step is the most important. Reserve bandwidth for your deep work before the day even begins. Think of it like a fixed expense in your budget. Rent gets paid first. And deep work should work the same way. Instead of hoping you'll find time for it later, you should schedule it before coordination and reactive tasks can consume your bandwidth. The final step is reducing decision load, because decision making is one of the most invisible ways bandwidth disappears. The trick here is batching it. Instead of constantly deciding what to do next, decide once and execute multiple tasks just from one plan. For example, plan the next 3 tasks in advance, then execute them without re-evaluating in between. When you start doing this, something interesting will happen. You're not working fewer hours, but suddenly your best thinking happens earlier in the day. And that all because your bandwidth is finally being spent on what actually matters. And the work that used to accumulate suddenly starts moving again. So the next time it's 3 p.m. and your thinking suddenly feels slow, remember what's actually happening to you. You didn't suddenly lose discipline. Your bandwidth is simply gone. Because every day your brain runs on a limited daily cognitive budget. And throughout the day, that budget gets spent on decisions, coordination, reactive tasks, and often before the deep work that actually matters to you. And that means focus isn't a personality trait, it's the result of how your mental bandwidth gets spent. When the budget is gone, focus disappears. But when you manage that budget intentionally, deep thinking suddenly becomes possible again. So if this changed how you see your workday, don't stop here. YouTube is recommending the next video right here, so we can keep engineering your mind together.